Hello and welcome to the MJ Take, here to review Thor, Love and Thunder. This is a spoiler review for Thor, Love and Thunder, and I really think I want to lean towards just doing spoiler reviews and spoiler discussions. I kind of enjoy those more. That way we can get into the nitty-gritty details of why I did or did not like certain things of a movie. And for this movie, I think this is particularly important, as Thor, Love and Thunder is probably one of the most polarizing Marvel movies, and we continue to say this in Phase 4. Phase 4 has had a number of polarizing movies throughout the MCU fan base, which has resulted in a lot of people being disappointed overall with Phase 4 and arguing that Phase 4 has been a disappointment. Now, I will get pushback to that. I think this is due to the fact that Phase 3 ended with such a bang, and we expected it to kind of continue for some reason. I don't really know why that was expected. I always knew there was going to be a bit of a lull after the ending of Phase 3, after the ending of Avengers Endgame. So this is no shock to me. It's been up and down for sure. This is probably, I'll say, the second most polarizing. Eternals is probably the most polarizing MCU film. I'd also say Doctor Strange Multiverse in Madness. However, I think most of us just did not like Eternals. I think most of us are willing to admit that. Only insane people are going to say that it was great. I think even, people that like the movie will say it's good. I don't think anyone's saying Eternals is great. Whereas some people will say that this movie is legitimately great, and some people will say that this movie is legitimately awful. But when we're talking about Phase 4, people, I want people to remind themselves about Phase 1. Because I think we're easily forgetting about Phase 1. Look, we started off with an absolute bang with Iron Man. Then we had Incredible Hulk. Who? What? Edward Norton's Incredible Hulk? We never talk about that movie. I haven't seen that movie since. To be honest, I have no interest in watching it. It's still canon, okay? Because you still have, some of the canon that's been throughout the MCU universe since then. But, no one really cares. No one's rewatched that movie. So relax on that. Captain America First Avenger. Really, it's okay. It's okay. Thor 1, it's okay. And then even Iron Man 2, I'd argue it's kind of bad. So Phase 1 was not great. It ended great with the Avengers movie, which was fantastic. But Phase 4 is already better than Phase 1. So let's just calm down with the Phase 4 hate. It's been a up and down. The series have been disappointing for sure, but I think we're overreacting a little bit. I think things need to settle a little bit. And then even in Phase 3, we have like a Captain Marvel who no one really cared about. I think Ant-Man and the Wasp is technically Phase 3. I could be wrong on that. It could be Phase 2 technically. I'm not a big fan of that movie myself. So let's not be totally revisionist here. Not every phase of the MCU has been perfect from beginning to end. It's usually the end that's great. And even then, Phase 2 Age of Ultron, it wasn't great. So let's relax. I think we're being a little revisionist when it comes to how great these MCU phases have been in totality. But when we look at Thor, Love and Thunder specifically, I'm actually going to kind of defend this film. I actually think it's overall good. I would even go as far to say that it's good. I think I actually enjoyed this film for the most part. However, the first half of this movie was barreling towards an absolute disaster. When you hear people complaining about there being too much comedy in this movie, when you hear people complaining about this movie not being serious enough, when you hear people complaining about Thor being an absolute joke and they're tired of it and they're sick of it, they're talking about the first half of this movie. There are way too many jokes. Nothing is taken seriously. And I'm not even talking about the Guardians of the Galaxy because, as you know, they were there for like 5 minutes. They got out of there. There were a couple quips, but not even as much as I expected, to be honest. I expected to hear way more quips from Rocket Raccoon, from Drax. There was like barely anything there. It was just Peter Quill that was talking to Thor, and that was just it. There really wasn't much when it came to the Guardians, but Thor was just an absolute joke. And I was cool with the workout montage. I thought it was funny enough. I thought that was fine. And throughout the film as well, hearing Korg's dialogue and his, recaps of what's been happening, I thought that was actually pretty funny. I was fine with that. But, just the continuous quips, especially mid-battle as well, it was a little over the top. But the disappointing thing about this movie, for sure, I mean, look how the movie started. You have Gore the God Butcher, before he's even Gore the God Butcher, by the way. But you see the beautiful scene, seeing him in the death of his daughter. And let me tell you, Christian Bale killed this movie as best as he could. Okay, with I would estimate 15 minutes, maybe 20, but I'd say 15 to 20 minutes of screen time that he had. I think he nailed almost every minute, almost. The scene with the children was a little weird, but outside of that, I think he absolutely killed it. He was fantastic. He was by far the highlight of this entire movie. And apparently there is a 4-hour cut of this film. There was way more footage, and I'm telling you, it has to include a lot of Gore the God Butcher, and apparently Lena Headey was supposed to appear in this film. Apparently, she was paid $7 million to appear in this film, but she's nowhere to be found. She was completely cut from the film. People are theorizing that she was going to be Gore the God Butcher's wife. What a dynamic that we should have seen. Seeing Christian Bale and Lena Headey potentially on camera together as a potential flashback with their daughter. I don't know how you cut that. I think that is absolutely critical and absolutely could have grounded this film more and would have made it potentially a great movie. But yeah, so Christian Bale's fantastic. But yeah, first half, way too many quips. You look at the trip to Omnipotent City. I was fine with the different types of gods and what was going on there. Zeus, I was overall fine with. It was a little goofy for sure. I expect Zeus to normally be, the strong stoic type. I think with Russell Crowe just being Russell Crowe, he made it work. Would I prefer a more serious Zeus? Yes, and that's why we see the post-credit scene that we saw. So I'm fine with it, but knowing that he didn't die, but knowing how he was defeated so easily was also kind of lame. And that was kind of lame. And the whole Thunderbolt stuff going around the room, it was a little crazy. It was on the nose, because I think one of the themes of this movie is looking at false gods, and I think just right out from the first scene, seeing Christian Bale's character going through having to go see the gods and being disappointed by him not, getting, the gift of eternal life or whatever they were promising right from the start. I think that was a theme of this movie, that a lot of these gods are just BSing. Okay, and that's fine. That's a theme that was heavy-handed. They're trying to hit there. But I think when you're looking specifically at that Omnipotent City scene, it was just a little too ridiculous. Like, some of these gods here have to be taking it seriously. I mean, come on, some. And then there were no Egyptian gods there as well, which I thought was odd. Now, Moon Knight, it's a TV show. I know it's not necessarily supposed to leak into the MCU, but if you're telling us that we're supposed to be watching these TV shows and they might come into the movies, when you're telling us there's Egyptian gods and yet there are no Egyptian gods at the actual Omnipotent City that we saw, and I'm pretty sure they even mentioned Ra when they were spouting off a bunch of gods that were going to be there, it's kind of odd. It's kind of odd. So this is just more and more the one problem that I do have a physics for. When you're throwing in all these different concepts, you're throwing in gods, you're throwing in Egyptian gods, you're throwing in the supernatural world, you're throwing in vampires down the road. It becomes a lot to keep track of, and then you're going to start asking questions. Well, why is this particular type of people not interacting with that particular type of people? That's the one problem I will have with the MCU right now. A lot of the stuff isn't flowing together. A lot of independent properties aren't making sense in terms of this being a cohesive universe, especially as we talk about the multiverse. But luckily, there's nothing to talk about there. Look at the rest of the crew. I mean, Chris Hemsworth, he does a great job as Thor, being the Thor that he needs to be for this. Again, it is sometimes too goofy, but I thought for the second half again, when he was serious, when he had this dramatic moment, when you see him in the death of Natalie Portman's character, Jane Foster, I thought that was fantastic. I thought that was terrific. Him taking care of the daughter afterwards, I thought that was great. I thought he did everything he was supposed to do. Natalie Portman, I've heard some complaints about her. I thought I actually quite well enjoyed the performance, especially when you saw her sick. You were able to feel her character is still driven, still trying to, fight and live on. And I thought she was very good. And now her action scenes, okay, yeah, potentially you can get a better actress to play that role for the action scenes. Or I mean, I'm sure there's a stunt woman in there, obviously, but I thought she killed it. I don't know what people really have problems with her performance. However, I have not read the Lady Thor comics, so I've heard that it's not necessarily, or her character and how she portrayed the character is not closely tied to the comic. Okay, sure. But from what I saw, it was working for me. I was fine with it. The rest of the cast and crew are kind of not really used much. I mean, Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie, she's in and out. She's kind of wasted here, to be honest. I'd like to see a little bit more character development from her. I mean, because she's supposed to really be I mean, at this point, I mean, second or third in terms of the Thor universe. I mean, now that Jane Foster's dead, I mean, it's really Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie that is supposed to be kind of his sidekick next to Korg in terms of leading these movies, in terms of being a critical aspect of these movies. And people love her character. I love her character. So I'd like to see a little more development. There was this one scene, the bar scene, when she's talking to Korg about, you know, her still dealing with emotional trauma. I think we could have explored that more. I would have liked to see that more. Although the runtime here was like 159, and I thought, you know, for most of our MCU movies, I think that's a decent runtime. I would have liked to see a longer cut, 100% of this movie, where we see more Gore the God Butcher development, where we see more Valkyrie development. And I think you cut out a lot of the quips, 100%. I think you could have done this easily. I also saw some people complaining about the idea of having children kidnapped and then having to fight for their lives. Now, I can see that. Now, I'm someone that, to be honest with you, normally does not see those things. It doesn't really bother me. But obviously, this is, you know, a bad timing with the Uvalde shooting and other shootings that we've had going on. It did not bother me at the time. I did think it was a little, I was like, wow, really? We're doing this? We're doing kids versus demons? I thought that was like, okay, that's not the choice I would have made. But I think it was fun. It was just a little bit of the, okay, now we're going back to being more fun. This is like very Shazam. That was a very Shazam scene with the kids fighting the demons. It was fine. That one tonally didn't quite work for me, especially because for the last 30 minutes, that's when the movie actually had calmed down, had become grounded, had become very serious. So I had a problem with that scene a little bit. But I love the addition of Axel, we'll call him, Heimdall's son. I think he should be aged up in the near future. I'd love to see him get involved a little bit more and be a character that would take over for his father and be a little bit more involved in the story. I think that'd be very fascinating to see. Hey, you can call your boy from Stranger Things. I would call him. I can't remember his name, but Lucas Sinclair. Can't remember his real name right now. I'd call him. I'd get him on the phone. Do you want to join the MCU and play, Heimdall's son in the next movie? I would make that call. What else is there to discuss? I mean, that's mostly the things that I wanted to touch on. Again, it had its faults, but for me, when it got more dramatic in the second half, and again, the death of Jane Foster, that storyline, the theme of love in this movie, Gore the God Butcher, when he actually becomes, resolved to save his or bring his daughter back, save his daughter, I thought that stuff was fantastic. I would argue that dramatic moment, I think it was a top 5 to 8 MCU dramatic moment for me. It may be per movie. Let me say because Endgame has like 3 or 4, so that you can't count maybe in totality. But I don't think you can name 5 to 8 Marvel movies that have a more dramatic ending than this ending. I really don't think you can name 5 to 8 MCU, at least 8. You can't name MCU movies that have a real dramatic weight to the ending of their movies like this one had. No Way Home obviously did. Endgame obviously did. Infinity War obviously did. There's not many more. There's not many more. Usually they end on very high notes. No one really dies. So I like the fact that, hey, Jane died. She went to Valhalla. So, which is to me a little annoying. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Like, I know we're heading into comic book material here. She's probably going to come back somehow, or Heimdall, whatever, down the road. Okay, fine. We're heading towards dangerous territories there, but fine. But I just like when deaths mean something, and we're going to head down the road where they don't mean anything, especially as you go more and more to the multiverse. But look, overall, I thought the art direction was fantastic. I thought the music was good. Too much humor in the first half. But even then, even though it was too much and a lot of it was sometimes lame, and I did not like the goats bit at all. I thought the goats were annoying, especially when at the end, in the third act, when they get also transported to Gore's shadow realm, I was like, Jesus Christ, do they really have to scream right now? Like, this bit is done for me. I'm over this bit. The bit was never funny to me. So I hated the goats. I hated it. It was never funny to me. So definitely some bits that did not land, but some bits that did. And I thought it was an interesting choice to bring the daughter in at the end, Gore's daughter, and to make her now essentially Thor's sidekick. I did not like the child actress, especially because she's sitting there watching her father die and she's emotionless. Now, she's a child, but that's her father. That doesn't make any sense. I liked her more when I heard her talking and I saw more of her personality, but that was a very strange choice to me. I'm interested to see where we go with that. And then Hercules is not coming to face Thor. And I think that should be a movie where we get a little more dramatic, which I think some of us would like. Like Thor Ragnarok, I think is better than this definitively. Thor Ragnarok, I'd give at least an 8.5 out of 10. I thought it balanced humor and drama well. However, for this one, my MJ Take score, I am going to give Thor Love and Thunder a 7.1 out of 10. I think it's good. I think MCU fans will enjoy it. I think if you're looking for a more dramatic Thor, you probably won't, but I think overall it is a good time if you're looking for a good time. So there you go. Those are my spoiler thoughts on Thor Love and Thunder. What are your thoughts? Comment down below. I want to know. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, to subscribe. And until next time, I'm out. See you all later.